Good afternoon, everybody. We are so happy to have you. So I'm Jennifer with Blue Water Homecare, and we have Patience Buchanan from Accountable Agent. Patience, do you want to just tell us a little bit about who you are and your company and what you guys do?
You bet. Thanks, Jennifer. Hi, everybody. I'm Patience Buchanan, a longtime social worker in Austin. Have been a care manager for about 4 or 5 years now. What that means is we're sort of a concierge service for families who don't know how to navigate the world of healthcare for their aging loved one and or special needs loved one. And we kind of hold their hands through things. We refer a lot to Virginia Sampson for some legal help and a lot to Blue Water for caregiver help. We're kind of the quarterback. We're the navigator through these trying times right now. So yeah, accountable aging, care management.
Thank you so much. And then Jennifer Gibson with Ascension-Seton Hospice. Jennifer, I know Jennifer actually has 2 meetings going at the same time. So Jennifer, are you on?
I am. I'm here. So yes, Jennifer Gibson, Ascension-Seton Hospice. And we provide hospice services in a very large territory from Buda and Kyle to Georgetown, out to Hutto, Bastrop. We even go all the way to Burnett, Bertram, and Marble Falls. We are able to handle some cardiac specialty cases and have had our staff trained to do so. So if you have any questions, call me.
Wonderful. All right, let's also just go down the line, and then I'm also at the very end going to introduce Sharon with Blue Water, and then she's going to introduce our basically our host for the afternoon. Did you have something, Jen?
We all want to share our information. There is a tab where we can chat.
Yes.
And you can just hit chat and share all your information. And then
that would
everybody
be great. Yeah, if everybody can just go down to the chat and write who you are. I want to introduce, I don't know, Allison Johnson. So Allison, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Allison Johnson. I'm the community director at Emerald Cottages. We're an independent living community in Round Rock. And I've known Sharon for, I don't know, maybe a year or 2 or so. So I'm happy to know Sharon and be able to continue to work with her.
Wonderful. Well, welcome and thanks for all that you do. And then let's see, we've got Andrea Oliveira. You want to tell us a little bit about you, Andrea? Maybe she can't. All right, Amy Mifflin.
Hi, yes, I was just typing my information out. I am been in case management now for like over 18 years. I was at St. David's, Maine, their case management department for almost right at 20 years. And I've currently gone to the outpatient setting, and I'm currently doing case management at the Dell Children's Comprehensive Care Clinic, obviously here in Austin.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Thanks for being here. And David Johnston. He may not be able to come on. All right, Kim, I know Kim Barnes. Tell us about you, Kim.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Kim Barnes, and I have a company where I do on-camera training. So I help people get comfortable and confident on camera for being able to do videos or virtual presentations or media interviews. And I also, though, am someone who is trying to manage my mom through doctor's appointments and things like that through COVID. So this seemed pretty interesting as I spent hours recently on the phone trying to help her connect to a virtual doctor's appointment from out of town. So so I am interested to hear all the different things y'all talk about.
Well, thank you for being here, and you are amazing.
Thank you.
I can say that for sure. And then let's see, we've got Tammy. I'm not sure if Tammy can jump in. Did I miss anybody that'd like to introduce themselves?
Hi, I'm Tammy.
Hey, Tammy.
Hi, Sharon told me all about this, and I was so excited and anxious to be able to listen in today. I'm a broker at Gottesman Residential Real Estate, and we always have the need to know about, different venues and things to resources to help us out when people need to move their parents to places, etc. So I was thrilled to join in and hear all about it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Tammy. Well, we've got Sharon Goss with Blue Water Homecare that's going to introduce our speaker, Virginia Sampson. And you want to tell us a little bit about you, Sharon?
Yes, ma'am. I'm Sharon Goss. I'm a registered nurse and have been for over 30 years. And was excited to work with Blue Water when Jennifer asked me almost a year ago. Mm-hmm. And of course, we help we have personal caregivers that help everyone at home to age in place or to go to a post-acute or rehab or to a community. We have over 80 caregivers, and many are CNAs and wonderful caregiving caregivers with just big hearts. So thank you all for coming today and sharing, and our community speaker, Virginia Sampson. Let me tell you a little bit about her. Before I do that, I do want to say that I wrote down everybody's name. I put them in a little basket that's attending today, and we have 2 Kendra Scott necklaces to draw, and we have some Kendra Scott masks to draw. So when we get finished, we'll do a little drawing.
Thank you.
So Virginia, wow, what a special lady she is. She's been an attorney for elder care law and probate and business law. She's practiced, I'll let you tell a little bit more about that, Virginia, but she's took care of her mom who had A.L.S., her husband, and her mom who suffered from a stroke. So she's been a caregiver for her immediate family for several years. And she, well, of course, at the same time, taking care of her young children. Her youngest child was actually 2 weeks old when she received the diagnosis for her husband with the A.L.S. So she's been a part-time caregiver for her mother as well, who did suffer from the stroke and dementia and other illnesses. So as a result of these experiences, Virginia was inspired to learn more about compassion, and she studied it extensively about the science of compassion. So she's going to be interactive and share lots of good information with us today. Virginia was also voted Elder Care Attorney of the Year last year for Austin, which is a huge kudos, and she's just a lovely lady. Thank you so much, Virginia, for taking your time today to educate us about caregiving and how we can prevent the COVID fatigue and compassion fatigue at this point.
All right, well, thank you for having me, Sharon. So Sharon told you a little bit. I've come to this through my own life experiences, right? Elder law, I got into as a result of helping my parents and then their friends. And then, of course, I was a caregiver to my husband, my mom. So I know a little bit about compassion fatigue. I haven't dealt with it through COVID-19 other than through my clients, but we're going to talk a little bit today about the science behind the idea of self-compassion. So I'd like everybody just for like even 30 seconds to just focus. Today is going to be all about you, right? I know you're not all used to that. You're wearing a bunch of different hats, parents, business owners, employees, whatever it may be. But today is really just the time I'd like you to just focus on you. So if we just take like a minute and think about, you can clear your mind a little bit. Some people do it by taking a few deep breaths. Some people like to focus their eyes on something in the room. Some people like to close their eyes. But Now I'm going to time it maybe about 15 seconds. If we can just all take a minute to kind of focus. I really want the focus to come back to you right now, not anything on your to-do list or anything else you have to do today. That's going to be a big piece of this. So we'll just start right now for 15 seconds. Okay, so hopefully everybody got a little bit centered. Now, Sharon, did you want me to share my screen? I have a PowerPoint. I don't necessarily have to share it, but it's kind of up to you. I lost you.
You should be able to now.
Okay.
I've made it for you. Just hit the share screen and then you should be able to.
Okay. Oops, I think I lost everybody. Sorry.
No, we're all there.
Okay. Okay.
And I'll tell you when we see it.
All right. Let's see if I can share it. There we are. Okay, hopefully it should come up right now. All right. So this is basically we're going to try some strategies to prevent it, right? And some of them are going to be, I put together a list of kind of some short-term emergency things to do if you feel you're having a meltdown or you're feeling a little overwhelmed. And then, of course, there's more extensive practices you can do. But we're basically talking about compassion. And that's really, we think of it as a fluffy kind of unnecessary type of emotion. That's great. You guys in your field are obviously already compassionate people, but it is a necessity. And the science has proven that. We need to develop it, we need to practice it, and we need to practice it not only for each other, but for ourselves. And we are going to talk about, it's critical to overcoming and defeating burnout, right? Being prepared. So as you probably know, when you are in the fields that you people are in, you're spending a lot of time helping other people, right? I mean, that's the focus of what you do. And that's not only giving them resources, but you get emotionally invested in what's going on with them, right? I mean, I do that as an attorney. People share their stories with you and their pain and, what they're going through. And so that, when you're a compassionate person, that can be very draining, right? It's emotionally exhausting. And so the researchers, and this has been studied all over the world at major universities, but Stanford, UC Berkeley has been studying the science of compassion. And so when you spend a lot of time being compassionate with other people or helping other people, you can get burned out. They call the technical term is secondary traumatic stress. And how do you know that's happening? There's certain signs and symptoms that can lead you to understand that may be what you're experiencing. Obviously, depression. I can feel like you're not really doing a very good job. You're not really making a difference in the world. Why are you doing this? You don't seem to really be helping anyone. You can feel very disconnected from your loved ones. You can experience psychological distress, anxiety, everything can upset you. You get a very short fuse, decreased feelings of safety. Again, that you just feel threatened. You're anxious, you're nervous. You can be cynical about everything in the world, about what you're doing. You can start to look at your clients. It's kind of like, oh gosh, somebody else now to help, or they don't think of them as their story, as the person. They just become almost like an entity or a product, right? And then you're emotionally exhausted, right? No matter how much you sleep, you just can't seem to get enough rest. As part of what happens, you're just always tired. And I'm gonna have to apologize in advance. I have a lot of text on my slides, and I was laughing the other day because as a litigation attorney, you have to prove and triple prove and quadruple prove things. So I still haven't been able to undo my training to be a little bit shorter on the slide. I'm working on it. I'm doing better. So, but anyway, so the research does show that people who are trained in self-compassion are less likely to experience fatigue or burnout, and also they're more resilient to stress. Right? It's because self-compassion is about taking care of yourself, right? And if we don't we know intellectually, if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't really take good care of others, but we don't understand what that really means. I mean, some of us think, well, I should go out to eat with my friends, which we can't do right now, or get a massage or something like this. But this is a bit more substantive, right? This is a scientific practices that are going to help you find ways to nurture yourself on an ongoing basis. So we want to be trained in self-compassion. Compassion itself is important. Again, we talked about how it's not a fluffy thing. It's one of the reasons we survived as a species, and it is essential to our survival individually and as a group of people, a community. What is it? So it helps, what it means is we identify, we see that someone's suffering or someone's in distress, right? That's the empathy part. And then we're moved to help them. So it's two pieces. It's identifying suffering or distress, and it's helping that person. So we have two kinds of compassion. One is the one that you practice every day in your professions as it's directed toward others. The other is for you, for yourself. That's self-compassion. Just as important as compassion, all right? So we care about it. Why is it so important? Because the global research is showing that there's a real mind-body connection, right? What we feel is experienced physically, has physical manifestations in our body, right? And we'll talk a little bit about that. So if I'm feeling compassionate, there's certain changes, chemical changes in my brain and certain changes in my bodily systems that are going to result in me getting a feeling of well-being and positivity, right? And so compassion and self-compassion are linked to success in really every area of our life: professional, personal relationships, our health, our psychological and physical health. All right, self-compassion. So we have the guru here in Austin who actually identified the concept of self-compassion. She's actually a professor at the University of Texas at Austin named Kristen Neff. And she first identified it a number of years ago, and this is how she defined it, and then all the other researchers have taken this definition to study it further. So I'm going to go over these in a little bit more detail, but when you're talking about being self-compassionate with yourself, there's three elements. If you want to practice self-compassion, there's three elements that you need to master, right? One is being kind to yourself. Right? We tend to, especially if we make a mistake, but even in meeting the demands of our daily lives, we tend to be very critical and judgmental. Right? We kind of beat ourselves up over our mistakes. We could have done better. We didn't help this person enough. We didn't listen enough. Whatever it may be, that is the antithesis of what you need to do to be compassionate with yourself. You need to be gentle and understanding with ourselves, just like you would be with a friend, right? If a friend comes and tells you they made a mistake, you're not going to say a bunch of horrible things to them. You're going to offer them words of comfort and compassion. So that's the first thing, is we have to learn to be kind to ourselves. The second part is we have to keep things in perspective, right? Whatever's upsetting us or whatever's going on in our lives, we want to recognize that this is just part of the human experience. Right. Part of what happens when people get into stress or they're overwhelmed or they're feeling burned out is that they start isolating themselves. They start separating themselves out from other people. And that's the worst that you can do, because when you separate yourself out and you isolate yourself, that's when you become depressed. So keeping in perspective and remembering it's part of a larger human experience, you're not alone in this, helps to alleviate some of the some of the negative effects of being in a difficult situation, being overwhelmed, feeling burnt out. And then the last piece is we want to be mindful. So we want to be aware of what is going on with our emotions, particularly, and the messages that we are saying to ourselves. We want to be aware of them, and we don't want to be judging them. So I'll talk about each of these three elements, but you'll see when we go through some of the handouts and the practices I'm going to go over a little bit with you, these three elements are incorporated into some of the short self-compassion practices that I have farther in the presentation. So let's talk about mindfulness first. That's the third piece, but this was one of the hardest pieces for me of this, because we have so much in our society about mindfulness, and you kind of get a little, I don't know, it was a little intimidating, but also you're kind of, that's a little weird. I mean, what am I supposed to do to be mindful? Do you have to sit on the beach and meditate? No, not necessarily. People can become mindful in many different ways, but the idea of mindfulness, again, is to be aware of your thoughts, your feelings. And some of the way that you can become aware of your thoughts and feelings is by becoming aware of what's happening in your body, right? Am I tense? You know, is my neck hurting? Is my back hurting? I mean, those are, because we know the mind-body connection, your body is telling you that you are in distress, something is upsetting you. So the idea of being mindful is just taking time and getting to know yourself, to be aware what is going on with me right at this particular moment. And once you're aware of it, you want to just accept it. We want to pay attention to it, but we don't want to judge it, right? I think we've all been, I know I was raised on the idea that feelings and thoughts were right or wrong. That's the opposite of mindfulness, right? However you're feeling is not wrong, it's not right, it just is. And you want to be aware of that. You don't want to judge it. That's when a lot of bad things happen in our bodies. So that's mindfulness. Again, it doesn't have to require meditation. It just is a way that you can become aware of what is going on with yourself and your body, your emotions, how you're feeling. And that's critically important when you're under as much stress as you are, because I think we'll talk about this later, I think we become stuffers, right? So here's why it's beneficial to practice self-compassion. They have determined, and this is all based on research at UC Berkeley, Stanford. So people who practice it they feel more energized, right? They feel like they're making a difference in the world, and they're happy about what they're doing. Instead of feeling drained and like, oh, what does it matter? Nobody cares type of thing. So you recharging yourself. You know, you are going to get drained. That's part of life. That's part of the occupations that you're all engaged in. But this is a way that you can recharge yourself. And it does, as we talked about, it contributes to a really optimal mindset, and that you can help each other, help other people on a long-term basis, because you're nurturing yourself. There's positive health benefits to it, and it makes us more resilient to stress. Okay. So this is they've determined a myriad of health benefits when you are compassionate and when you practice self-compassion. Interestingly, it reduces your levels of cellular inflammation. And that has to do with some of the chemicals that are emitted. We'll talk a little bit about that. And we know cellular inflammation is at the heart, at the root cause of many diseases, a lot of autoimmune diseases and cancers. When you practice compassion and self-compassion, it actually reduces your heart rate, your blood pressure. It strengthens our immune system. It helps us recover from disease faster, and actually can make us live longer, helps us live longer. So I'm just going to cover a little bit. This is kind of the Cliff Notes version, right, of why self-compassion is good for your health and well-being. There's a lot to it, but as we said, if you're compassionate to yourselves, you're less likely to be depressed, anxious, and stressed out, and you're more likely to be happy. You're going to weather the ups and downs of life better. One of those reasons is you're nurturing yourself, but you're also, when you engage in self-compassion, you are causing a neurochemical in your body, oxytocin, to be released, right? And oxytocin, that we know, increases your feelings of trust, of calm, of safety, of warmth, generosity, and feeling connected, right? And part of that is when we are compassionate with others and with ourselves, we're tapping into our evolutionary system of caregiving. I mean, we had to build communities to take care of our young, and as part of that, we learned how to get along and how to build a community. And when we are compassionate with other people, including with ourselves, we're tapping into that evolutionary system of caregiving. And we're releasing oxytocin into our system. It's the feel-good neurotransmitter. It's released in other things too, you know, breastfeeding, sex. There's a bunch of things that oxytocin is released during certain activities. But certainly when you're being compassionate to someone else or to yourself, oxytocin is being released into your body. Now, the opposite of that is cortisol, right? And we know that cortisol is emitted when we're in times of stress. So if you're in burnout, if you're experiencing burnout, you're feeling overwhelmed, then you're emitting a lot of cortisol into your body. And so that increases, when you have cortisol in your system, that increases your blood pressure, your adrenaline, and it can attack your systems, some of your bodily systems and organs. And that's one reason if you have high levels of cortisol, it can result in some kind of diseases. So, and also what we're talking about with self-compassion, when you engage in self-criticism, right? One of the pieces of self-compassion is to be kind to yourself and to not judge how you're feeling at the time or the mistakes that you've made. And so when you engage in those kind of activities of self-criticism and judgment, harsh judgment of yourself, you're also releasing cortisol, which is bad for your mental and emotional health and your physical health. So that's kind of the Cliff Notes version of why compassion, self-compassion are healthy for you mentally and physically. So in order to practice self-compassion, there's a couple of simple ways to do it. They incorporate, we have simple self-compassion practices, and then we have more extensive if you want to get more, if you're worried about more longevity on this, right? You want to get a little deeper into self-compassion. People can make it a part of their daily life. What I've talked about here, because a lot of you are already overwhelmed and feeling burnout, is I didn't want to overwhelm you with some difficult practices that you're going to have to do. Another thing to add to your to-do list. So I tried to find some simple, easy, quick things that you can do to nurture yourself during a time of stress, or if you're feeling overwhelmed or you're feeling burnt out. So interestingly enough, one of the simplest self-compassion practices is just a hug, right? Touch releases oxytocin and it makes us feel good. Obviously, we have to be careful. It's not appropriate to hug everybody these days, and there may not be somebody around to hug, but so you can hug yourself. And believe it or not, it seems a little weird. It's kind of silly. I've done it. It does feel strange at first, but it does tap into your self-healing system. It does release the oxytocin. And so you can go in a corner and hug yourself, and you will feel better. Certainly that doesn't take any time. You can do it if you're just feeling overwhelmed. I've suggested it to some of my clients who are caregivers to their parents, if they're having a meltdown, just to take a little, go out of the room and hug themselves. It helps you become centered a little bit on yourself, and it does feel good. So that's probably one of the simplest things you can do to avoid burnout. And then I recommend some self-compassion practices, right? These are short, 5-minute practices. It doesn't even take 5 minutes. You can take them throughout the day. This can be preventative. So we know if you practice self-compassion, it's going to make you more resilient to stress. So you can cope with the immediate issue, right, with a hug. This self-compassion break is going to start helping you to take care of yourself more on a regular basis and help you become more resilient to stress. And the idea is that we're going to incorporate the 3 parts of self-compassion into a little practice. So the first thing is that we want to be mindful of what we're feeling or experiencing, right? We tend to, I think especially with a lot of demands, we tend to push all of our feelings aside and stuff them down. And then they can explode, right? A little thing can send us into a big explosion. And it's not necessarily the small thing that happened. It's just that we've stuck down how we've been feeling for so long that one little thing, like, that old saying, the straw that broke the camel's back, it just can explode on us. So part of it is training yourself. And if you can do it, if you do several of these a day, in the morning, middle of the day, if you're upset, just take a minute like we did when we started to focus on something, take some deep breaths, whatever works for you, and try to think about what you're feeling at the particular time, right? Because when you know how you're feeling, then you can deal with it. And if you have feelings that are coming up that are depressing you, upsetting you, remember that you want to just keep those in perspective. We'll talk a little bit more about this. And then when you're going through all this, you want to practice kindness for yourself, right? You know, I mean, I grew up with a mother that was the queen of criticism. So I didn't even realize how much I internalized messages and how much negativity and critical and judgmental things I would say to myself during the course of a day. And I think if you start to do this, you might be surprised too about the unconscious messages you're putting through your head that are affecting you. And they were such a part of my life. Honestly, I didn't even realize I was doing it until I started practicing this. I'm like, wow, I really say a lot of terrible things to myself. So this is a good way to start unlearning some of the negative information and things that you say to yourself subconsciously, or, you know, just pass through your mind. You're so used to them, you just think that's part of your life. All right, so I'm going to go into them in a little bit more detail. So if we want to do a self-compassion practice, part one is we're going to use mindfulness to calm yourself, right? Or to focus yourself. So basically, you're going to ask yourself, when you can find a little bit of a quiet place, again, it doesn't take a lot of time, just ask yourself, what am I feeling or sensing in this moment? And again, it may just be that you feel your body tense. Something may be aching, and then you want to take a minute to ask yourself, what's going on with my body? And see if you can figure out if your neck is sore. Are you upset about something? Are you worried about something? What's going on with you? And it's going to take some practice, right? Because we aren't really trained in our culture to be focused on how we're feeling or what we're sensing in a particular moment. And especially in your profession, your profession is all about the people that you serve, right? And so we tend to not want to deal with what's going on with ourselves because the other person is more important, or what I'm doing right now is more important. But if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to serve that person as well. So you remind yourself about that. A lot of us spend time rehashing the past. We've made mistakes. You know, we beat ourselves up over it, and we're ruminating about the future, what's going to happen. You know, I couldn't do this before. Can I do it now? Those are the kinds of things that can run through our minds that you want to calm your mind and see if you can stop doing that, or at least let them pass through your mind without judgment, right? Lots of times we can't stop it, but we can let them pass through our mind and not judge them. So if you can label your emotions or what you're feeling, then you can deal with it in a healthy way. And again, when I'm saying labeling, I'm not saying, say your emotion is wrong or right, but, you know, I'm distraught, I'm angry, I'm overwhelmed, I'm disappointed in myself, whatever it may be. If you label it, somehow that releases some of its power that it has over you. And you can begin to deal with it in a healthy way. You can start saying it's not allow those unhealthy messages to control you, right? You can stop the criticism and the judgment. When you know what you're experiencing, you can identify it, and then you can try to reprogram yourself not to criticize yourself and not to judge what you're feeling at that particular moment. Again, this is not, you can do this quickly, but if you want to do this long term, it does take some practice. Because again, we are not conditioned to be non-judgmental or non-self-critical. We are pretty much always self-critical and always judging ourselves and our performance and our interactions with other people. So we want to be mindful. The simple thing is you can just ask yourself throughout the day, what am I feeling right now? What am I doing right now, you know, in your body? And that can help you start to become more aware of what's going on with you emotionally. And of course, physically, that if you're having a physical symptom, that's a symptom of some emotion that you're not dealing with. So this is the first part, is try to be mindful of what's going on with you. If we're not, you could look like this at the end of the day, right? You stuff it all down and then you just all of a sudden explode. And frustration, anger, you don't even know why. You just have a meltdown. And that's one of that's one of the symptoms of burnout, right? Is that just little things can upset you and then you can totally lose it. Hopefully it's in the office when you're alone and not with a client, but you know, don't be a stuffer. I think we're trained to stuff our emotions down. This is the opposite of that. If you want to be compassionate with yourself, you need to bring them forward. You need to not judge them. You need to recognize them and accept them, just as you're accepting yourself. So the second part of this self-compassion practice is to keep things in perspective, right? So we're mindful now. We said, I'm in distress, I'm overwhelmed, I'm afraid, I'm angry about something, right? And so then the next thing we want to say, and then we start thinking about, why is the world unfair? Why is this me? You know, this isn't fair. I already do too much for people, and now somebody wants me to do something more. I just really can't do that. Why are they doing this? It helps to then when you've identified it, let's put it in perspective, right? I mean, it is just a moment in time of your life. We're all, and you say things to yourself, everybody's going to have different things that resonate with them on how to keep things in perspective, but, you know, we all struggle. Other people are going through this, whatever it may be in your life. And we're all going through COVID-19 right now, right? So everybody's going through this right now. I'm not alone. I'll get through this. This too shall pass. Whatever resonates with you to see the bigger picture of this point in time in your life, so that you don't start feeling persecuted or isolated from other people, but you start feeling connected to other people and experience. Because remember, that's part of compassion, is connecting. That activates oxytocin, and it helps us feel better. So we don't want to isolate ourselves. We want to keep it in perspective. We want to see this part as part of humanity. We're part of humanity. We're connected to other people as we go through this. That's your second part, after you've identified what's going on with yourself. And then our third part is you want to be kind to yourself, right? So you've identified it, you've put it in perspective, and then you can find yourself saying unkind things to yourself again, right? Well, why am I here? It's my fault. If I wouldn't have done this, this wouldn't have happened. No, stop the negative talk. Again, if you can't stop it, just let it pass through your mind without judgment, and start substituting that with words of kindness and encouragement. You know, like I said before, if a good friend comes to you in distress, you're not going to say terrible things to them, right? You're going to say kind things to them. You're going to want to help them feel better. Well, we need to do that for ourselves, right? You need to say kind things to yourself to soothe yourself, nurture yourself, and help yourself feel better. That's what this is about. We are nurturing ourselves when we are being compassionate to ourselves. We are building ourselves up. So find positive affirmations that work for you. I've put a few examples down here. Again, if those don't resonate with you, maybe there's something that you will resonate with you in a time of stress or crisis or just being a little depressed. What's going on with you, and what is going to help you feel better? What positive affirmation can you say to yourself? A lot of it is, may I forgive myself? I think, again, we're hard on ourselves. Can I accept myself as I am? A lot of those have very positive effects mentally and physically, because as we know, the mind-body connection in terms of helping you to nurture yourself, right? So find what resonates with you, and then you will start saying that to yourself instead of the negative messages that you give yourself. So that's a short little self-compassion practice. So we've got the little hugging yourself. That's kind of for if you're having a meltdown or you're in a crisis and you just think, I'm going to just lose it right here, right now. I've been there as a caregiver where you think, I cannot do one more thing. And then this other one that I talked about, self-compassion break, is just that. Take a little 5 minutes of a coffee break, take a 5-minute self-compassion break. Talk about, identify what's going on. Keep it in perspective, right? It's not the end of the world. And then find kind things to say to yourself as you struggle with whatever the issue is before you at that particular time. And the more you do that, the more you will nurture yourself, and the more you will build up your resilience to the ups and downs and the stresses of professional life and personal life. Right? You will become more resilient because you will be taking care of yourself on a regular basis. Those are the simple ones. Those are the two simple ones. Now, there are some longer and more in-depth compassion and self-compassion practices. I'm just going to touch on one right here. There's a loving kindness meditation. which is derived from a Buddhist meditation. And it's basically about cultivating unconditional kindness and love towards yourself and others, right? And they have determined that meditation does actually alter your brain chemistry. It does alter how you respond to emotion, anxiety, depression, stress. And they've done this by having people meditate and then putting them in an MRI. And they have actually seen changes in the brain. And the positive results last long after you have stopped meditating. So it's not just while you're meditating. It continues for a period of time. I don't know that they've determined exactly how long that is, but they know that it's the positivity continues. So the benefits that we talked about just for compassion and self-compassion, right? You build your immune system. It lowers your rate of depression. It increases your capacity for compassion and self-compassion. The loving kindness meditation is a little bit more detailed, and if someone's interested, I'm happy to give them a handout. I've given some handouts to Sharon of the hugging and the self-compassion break that she's going to distribute. It just sets out the steps for you, because I know in the beginning it's hard to master this, so you can just have that in front of you and you can walk through those steps. This is a little bit longer. I haven't given this to Sharon, but I'm happy to share this with anyone that is interested. Essentially, it is a meditation where you send love to yourself and other people, right? And how extensive you want that to be, if you want to pick people to send love to, if you want to send love to the world. I do this a lot in the mornings, and I'm telling you, it just frames the whole day. When you wake up in the morning and you send love to yourself and love to the world, it's just energizing. So that's a little bit longer. You can make it as short as long as you want, but the other two are more designed for burnout. This is more designed to helping you develop more of an attitude or a practice of compassion and self-compassion for yourself and other people. All right, so here's just a little summary. It is critical, self-compassion, as is compassion, to our emotional, physical health and well-being. You do need to focus on yourself. You do need to take care of yourself. And that's in a deeper sense than, going to a movie with a friend. I'm not saying those aren't important, but this is taking care of yourself in a very deep emotional sense and physical sense of nurturing yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically. And it does make us more resilient to stress. Here are the two simple techniques that I talked about. Give yourself a hug, take a 5-minute self-compassion break on a regular basis. And if you need a reason to be self-compassionate, it makes you better and more compassionate and effective in your professional roles, right? You're in a better place to help people. You're feeling better. You've got more to give because you're nurturing yourself. And it helps in our personal lives. It helps in our personal relationships. The researchers have discovered that compassion and self-compassion are critical to our well-being, and they're essential to us being able to thrive individually and as a species, as a human being. The sense of community. I've got a whole series of references. This is only a small part of where all of this information has come from. But I think the idea is so that you don't look like this at the end of the day, right? You're going to be stressed out, but you want it to be manageable. We're not going to be able, but we don't want to be burned out. We don't want to get to the point where we don't care about what happens to ourselves or any of the people we're taking care of, or our family even. They can all go to hell, right? I've been there. So these little tips, I hope these are small and short enough that you will be able to incorporate them into your regular lives and help you to prevent COVID fatigue, but also to make you more resilient to it. So I guess if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Hey, Virginia, I loved your presentation. One of the parts I loved the most was when you talked about sort of a morning routine, about sort of that self-affirmation. I think that's really helpful for us to kind of, I guess, tell ourselves that, I am strong, I am resilient, I will get through this, because I think it's easy to go to a really dark place. Most of the people on the call are in healthcare, or they're experiencing, issues with their loved ones. And I think it's just so easy to go to those dark places. So I love the idea of just like making that maybe into your daily routine. It kind of just gives you that power to start the day. I love that. So thank you for the reminder.
Well, and I think too, we're trained in our culture that if we think about ourselves or take care of ourselves, we're kind of selfish or vain, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why should we say great things to ourselves? But that's so the antithesis of what we really need to be doing. And so, you know, we're not getting a lot of praise from other people, because I have clients too. I mean, they're in a lot of stress, and sometimes you can be a punching bag for that, right?
Exactly.
And so I think nobody's given us a lot of affirmations. So I really do think that it's so critical that we do it for ourselves. And even in a moment when you're feeling down, if you can, like I said, say something positive to yourself. Stop the criticism, the self-criticism, the judgment. Yeah, that's just a lifelong process, but it really does make a difference in how you handle things and how healthy you are and how good you feel about yourself and your life.
Good points. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or experiences or struggles, Sharon? Oh, let me unmute you. Hold on. Okay. You just unmute yourself.
Thank you, Virginia. That was such a good information. I really like the self-hug, and having a young adult and a teenager as well. Sometimes they don't want hugs. So I can teach that to them as well, to just give yourself a self-hug. And I wrote down lots of wonderful tips that you gave us. So thank you. During this COVID pandemic, I think we've all kind of worked ourselves to death. And sometimes, I'm sitting in my desk at my chair at 8 o'clock, and I look up and it's 2 o'clock and I haven't moved. So I think that these tips are really, really helpful.
Well, and if you go to one of my websites, compassionmagic.com, I have a little free ebook on compassion, and there's actually a little test that's been devised and I'm happy to share that with people too, that can determine how self-compassionate you are with yourself, right? And I think if you take it, you'll probably all be amazed, or maybe not amazed, at how we don't show ourselves compassion, certainly not in the way that we show the people that we serve compassion. And that's out of balance. We need to show the same compassion to ourselves as we do to those people. So there's this is a test devised by the researchers that you can score and figure out what you need to work on in order to become more compassionate with yourself.
Oh, that's great. What's that website again?
It's right there, compassionmagic.com. But there's just a little summary, a little ebook on self-compassion, and then at the end of this, a little test that you can take.
Oh, great.
I was thinking of giving some of it out right now, but it can be a little bit lengthy. So, and you do have to answer it honestly, because the questions, when you see them, you'll think, oh boy, I don't do that. I really, you kind of want to answer like you think you should, but I think if you answer honestly, it'll be a wake-up call. It was for me when I first took it.
And I think
how critical I was of myself.
Yeah, and I think owning too your feelings. When you're feeling down, or maybe someone criticizes you for what you've done or made you feel guilty, having these teenagers, then you just own your feelings and deal with it. I think that was...
Yeah, there's a practice about labeling your emotions too, if you're struggling with that, because I know we feel things and we're so not used to identifying them. There's a whole little process you can go through to help you sort out and label the emotion, because I've discovered with myself that when I can identify it, I'm able to deal with it in a healthy way. When it's just like up in the air and I'm like looking like the mouse, it's just like, oh my God, I have no idea what to do. So, there's also labeling your emotions is very important to dealing with them in healthy ways.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Does anybody else have any questions? I see Amy just posted, I'm trying to find it. Amy said, name it to tame it. I love the phrase for naming your emotions. I love that. That's great.
Send me an email. I'm happy to share any information that I have with anyone. I mean, the whole idea is that let's all support each other and build each other up and help each other get through this crisis. is so important.
I think
And
you're right. Go ahead.
I just was saying, I heard Virginia say that she was going to share her presentation with Sharon. And then Sharon, are you going to send it to the group?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Virginia, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone on this call. I know your time is very valuable. Oh, yes, I forgot. How could I forget? The yellow box or the bag.
The yellow box.
All right.
Oh, I have some, I put everybody's name in a little Easter basket for my kids. And so hopefully I won't draw the stale jelly bean. Let's see here. Okay. The first one is, Kim Barnes.
Oh,
Yay!
that's exciting.
Kim, you
Yay.
get a necklace.
How fun. How fun. I never win anything. That's so fun.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
And the next one is Andrea Oliveira. Andrea, you get a necklace also.
Yay.
The next one is Allison Johnson. Allison, you get
Some face masks.
face
Oh,
mask.
thank you.
You're welcome. And then the last face mask goes to Amy Muffin. Amy Muffin, you get a face mask.
All right. Well, we'll get those out to everybody in the next couple days. And appreciate all of you. Thank you again to Virginia and everyone that's here and our sponsors, obviously Blue Water Homecare, Accountable Aging, and Ascension-Seton Hospice. So thank you, everybody. We will do a replay so you guys are able to find on our Facebook page as well. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
We have another presentation too coming up. So
Oh, yes, 2 weeks.
in 2 weeks. So keep an eye out for that invitation coming to your email. And also let us know if you have any topics that you'd like us to cover or speakers that you'd like us to book. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Right.
Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye.